the shores of our habitation, and the inhabitants that form this ecosystem. The ecosystem is part of us as humans, and our relationships are exploitative and symbiotic. Yes, they are symbiotic. This is Ibrahim Hedri. And our urban shores are stressed. After 1949, the Kolongi Creeks were used as a landing strip for the seaplanes. Kabir, when we were born, we cried even when we were laughing. When we laughed, we cried. If I pray to rock, let me pray to a mountain. This is the Jackie Fort, just off podcast. If I pray to rock, let me pray to a mountain. Kabir, there's one well, and the blessings are many. Everyone has these wonderful vessels. The water is the same.
So Tariq, what took you out first?
Before I say that, the lesson learned in the nexus between humanity, humans, inhabitants, and the natural world is that there is an order, but the world of us humans, there is this great disparity in the order. And we know that. But when you go out into these wildernesses, and this is what drew me there, there is the sense of oneness, and there's the sense of belonging, and there's this openness of communication if you keep silent. And what took me out there was inborn. I've always sought spaces of solitude, looked for places where I can go and explore. And when I found these forests, which were accidental to me, I spent maybe 6-7 years just exploring, mapping, understanding the channels, and just simply enjoying it, and realized that none of us knew that these existed in They're 15 minutes away from Karachi. Sorry, let me just adjust this. They're 15 minutes away from Karachi by slow boat. ये दूसरा माइक ऑफ कर देंगे वो फीडबैक हो रहा है एक ऑफ करना so they're just 15 minutes away from Karachi and it's in our backyard yet none of us have had experienced them so I very selfishly photographed them and I started to write books and I write my poetry and just enjoy it and the understanding comes because there seemed to be a slight lacuna. There was a lot of cut stumps. And suddenly, the cutting started again. And it became imperative that I not only share my experiences, but I start talking about the fact that these incredible trees that were cut. There was this one tree which had a girth of about 4 feet, trunks that were 1.5 foot, 18 to 20 inches wide, arms that came out. Nurjan, you're here, we use that picture at the Biennale. And there are these incredible trees. And in 2016, I first photographed it in 2011. Every year, 2 times, I would do a small pilgrimage. I'd go there, I'd go to the tree, I'd photograph it, say hello to it, I'd come back. It was there to that intensity. And 2016, I witnessed it being cut. I was there when the woodcutter's water bottle was still lying, leaning against the tree, and the sawdust was on the mud. The tide had not had enough time to change. So I was there within 6 hours of that thing being cut. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I can't go in anymore. Because previously I'd said that when they cut this tree, I will stop. And for 6 months I could not get on a boat and go into that forest. I started again, and the mission was important. The mission was important to communicate. It's difficult to stop the desire for profit, even if it's 20 rupees a kilo for this wood. This wood is 20 rupees a kilo. So the exploration and the expression of what I feel was very important to be communicated, and I hope I have done that to a certain degree. I thank you all for being here because it's important. And
it's 20 rupees a kilo, but for a poor person in the Delta, I mean, they need firewood. They don't have gas. They don't have electricity. How do they cook? So, these are serious problems, and they're real problems that are faced by the fishermen who are the poorest of the poor.
a friend of mine went into the mangroves of the boat club, and while he was on his boat, he discovered the woodcutters cutting, and he challenged them. And they turned around and said, "What can I do? I owe someone a lot of money. And yes, I don't earn anything much of it, but I have to pay off my loan, so I have to bring home a certain amount of wood on a regular basis." So he and his sons go in there, and it's the same. It's the same scenario for for the kilns, for the brick makers. These are existential and very serious issues that need to be addressed in our communities, in our societies, in our governments. So yes, it is not the woodcutters who are taking this for profit.
No, it's not just the woodcutters, but you also have developers, and there are whole parts of the mangroves that have been destroyed completely for development. I mean, I know that the entire area along Maikolachi was mangroves, and now it's apparently a KBT colony, supposedly supposed to be one. And the mangroves keep fighting their way through the reclaimed soil and keep popping up. But that entire area was mangroves, and I remember maybe 30 years ago driving down there, and there were flamingos there and all kinds of birds. So, these things do matter, and I think sadly we tend to forget that. I think if we look at the fact that you had seaplanes flying in there, you have windmills, you have all kinds of things happening. There is a way for modernity to coexist with the tradition.
Absolutely, and it's complicated. It's not simple by any standards, and it is very deep, and it's a conversation that is necessary in groups where stakeholders who can do something about it would be there to listen. We'll address some of it today. Uh,
But
but
I think we should go to the next film.
I would like to,
Yeah.
because this is something very special, and it has to do with our cultures and human habitations in the month of Rajab, and sometime January. So it'll be in January sometime this year, I think. I hope.
And we all know Bundle Island really well. It's been in the news a lot thanks to the efforts of not just Tariq, but HN is here as well, and a few other people. Taimur Mirza is not here with us today, but a lot of people have been out there documenting and doing things. Could we have the film?
It's about 4.5, 5 kilometers offshore from Ibrahim Haiti directly. Everyone comes by boat. Children dress up. Ladies come in their finery.
Tariq buys toys for everyone.
देखो अब माइग्रो का दूसरा तो चारा है नहीं, महंगाई बहुत बढ़ चुकी है। ये तो सालों साल से आते हैं, बच्चे तफरी करते हैं इधर पूरे हैदरी की। ये तो आज कुछ नहीं है, तो शुरुआत है। कल देखना, हाँ, मेहनत करके खाने वाले आदमी हैं सारे, हराम खाने वाले। ये इधर भी तो मामूली है। कल तुम देखना इंशाल्लाह, तुम कितनी जगह नहीं मिलेगी। सुबह से शुरू हो जाएंगे। देखो कल आएगी यहाँ पे खड़े जगह भी नहीं, वो कुछ ऐसे हैं जो ये तो पहले आया, हमारे से 5 दिन पहले आया, इधर बैठे तबरी होती है। आदमी गरीब आदमी क्या करेगा, ये सी तबरी करेगा और बुजुर्ग की हाजिरी भरेगा, ये बस। बहुत अच्छी है ना।
Those are the toys he bought them.
H.M. Naqvi is with me here. H.M. Naqvi is one of my companions, out of many of you that are here. We have a quest to get to this shrine that has been attempted many times. This is the first time that we were able to. And this next segment is also one that H.M. Joined me on. And we attempted to walk across Bundle Island to the shrine. And
It's not for the faint-hearted.
it is not for the faint-hearted. And Shahab Karamat is here. His daughter joined us with my son on that trip, and I'm thrilled to say that they eventually got married. So she is now my daughter-in-law. But the fact that this young lady made it across this island without complaining for about a 4.5, 5-hour trip, and on the return, HM will be witness to this. I got everyone lost in the middle of the night in the dark. And so we made it back, but it was one of the most exciting trips that I've had. So I'd like to show you a snippet of that experience. It was very eventful for me, for my life. It was very eventful for our quest to get here. But it wasn't the day in Urdu we say कि बुलावा नहीं आया था HM, है ना? उस दिन बुलावा नहीं आया था. So please शुरू कर दें.
उधर से पानी गुजरता है, 400 फल पुरानी अंबोर बड़ी पता है।
That video is coming next. This is another conversation, very important.
तो पिट्टी इसलिए बोला कि ये खराब हो गया, तो पिट्टी जिंदगी में बोलता पिट्टी।
Pity is the podcasting channel.
उसके बाद जो तब्दीलियां आ रही हैं, वो तो है। तो बात ये है कि इस वक्त माइग्री का कोई वैल्यू नहीं है। पहले बात है ना, माइग्री गरीब आदमी है, उसका कोई वैल्यू नहीं है। पाकिस्तान में वैल्यू नहीं है। हरामखोर जो है नहीं, वो डेरा बना के बैठ गए खाने के लिए। गरीब बेचारा कुछ गुजारा करके तभी बच्चों को खिलाता है। अभी उसमें भी खतरा है। अभी देखो केसरी था, वो तो रुकने नहीं देते, इधर खड़ा नहीं हो, उसके इस तरह हम उसको पुठा बोलता था, वो तो ओटलियां बन गई। कल इधर बनेंगे, हमको बोले यहाँ से न गुजरो, और हम किधर जाएंगे? हमारा तो निजाम खराब हो जाएगा। नहीं चलो देखो कासू मोड़ को देखो, किसी को देखो, अभी डिग्गी को देखो, इतना जुल्म है हमारे ऊपर। बाकी ये तो हम नहीं छोड़ेंगे, ये हमारा जो बुजुर्ग ने जो दिया है हमको, ये तो हम मरेंगे तब इधर आएंगे, ये नहीं, हाँ ये हम नहीं करेंगे। हाँ वो बात नहीं है। और कोई खिदमत हो बता।
Tariq, you've seen horrible disparity, haven't you?
Our country, the world, our city, our waters, they're not just for the ones with power and with money. Uh, there has to be a new system of equity and balance. And that's one thing that nature teaches you. Nature is not friendly. Nature is dispassionate. And it works with what is needed and how it needs to develop. We need to have equality and more equanimity. This is an interview with Taimur Mirza and myself. It's a necessary little segment. We all understand the benefit of mangroves. They protect us from tsunamis and sea surges. They provide shelter to fishermen and villagers on the coastline. They absorb even more carbon than the rainforest. They are a nursery for fisheries. They are so vital for marine health. Our delta has been the very reason that our shores and our coastline have been so prolific in the production of fish. Taimur Mirza is with me. He's a conservationist, a photographer, and a core member of our team. You know, the fact that this forest exists just adjacent to Karachi is astounding.
Exactly. And large part of the population, Karachi, this concrete monstrosity, is totally unaware of it.
Absolutely.
And these islands out there on the windward side, and they provide that essential oxygen that is needed in the highly polluted industrial areas of Landi and Korangi and
All over Landi,
all the,
Karangi, and the rest of Karachi.
yeah, the rest of Karachi.
But yet, this last section of these massive forests are at risk.
Yes, they are, definitely. The reason behind is the poverty, extreme poverty, lack of education, no, and no infrastructure, no civic agencies involved in protecting these vital resources.
And, and the specter of future development.
Exactly.
It is a specter. And these environments need to remain nature reserves.
But Tariq, you talk about development and the lack of protection and lack of education. But surely the coastal communities must have some awareness as to how important these mangroves are. I mean, for centuries they've lived among them and in them and with them. So they must have some idea of what is too much.
What do you do when you push a society to exist for survival? When your choices are the immediate survival of your children, the grandchildren to come are not factored in. And we are on the verge of, if not have reached the verge of creating a society of such great problems. I am a firm believer that it is resolvable, but it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about. And we need to take action on it. So they are aware. They value their forests. There's no question about it. There's a witness statement in a subsequent video where the gentleman talks about it. His camel had drowned that day, and he was very expressive about the woodcutters and why and what harm they were doing and how he was losing his forests. So no, they're aware.
We were to move on to that. But I think it's really important for all of us to realize that even in the West, overfishing is done by corporates. It's not the little fisherman who goes out and earns his living. It's big corporate fishing. And I think that's the problem here as well. It's big development that's destroying our natural habitat. So could we have the next video? I'm sure nobody ever imagined camels in the mangroves.
These words are very important. I put the subscript down. This is Ghulam, and this is how he tells his camels that there's water to drink. Gulasan is his son. He is now my friend. This is the place the birds will come to roost. That's what they First time I'm showing these images at any point. They're part of a substantial documentary that I'm putting together. But this is the day that I filmed the camels drowning.
So camels, ships of the desert. You'd never imagine them in the mangroves or in the sea. But it's incredible how many hundreds of camels there are on the island. They're taken there to keep them safe. And then fresh water is taken out to them so that they can drink. But the camel herders have such incredible stories. So maybe Tariq, you can share some of their stories with us.
For some other time. There are so many. I have been so privileged. It's just, I'm so grateful to have been able to experience these things. There has been wonder, there has been this exceptional joy. It's come with tears because over this last decade and a half, not only have I communicated with the plants and the trees, I can read the water talks. I know the people. The islands I go to are uninhabited. The visitors are transient. They're migratory. The camel herders come and leave. They make shacks there to live in. But I know them as individuals. I know them by name. I know the multitasking jobs that they do. As a society and community, as an economic community, as capitalists, socialists function with these. Uh, but this ecosystem is rich, is deep, and it goes back centuries. The camel herders have been doing this work and have created an entire range of camels who will swim with great pleasure. Not all camels will swim. This is uh, the normal camel, okay? The dromedary. This is the dromedary camel. It's called the Kharial, not because of any genetic mutation, but because they have evolved to like to swim across channels. The film, the last clip of that camel swimming, she was in 50 feet of water. 50 feet of water she swam across. Uh, Two camels almost drowned. One did. Why? Because the woodcutters had cut the forest. The camels got stuck in the mud. The herders had to go there at night to spend the night in the forest on the outskirts, on the inner side of the mangrove, uh, helped them up. The camels were exhausted. The poachers had come, the bird poachers, the falcon poachers. It's another complete story. Taimur and I have actually been taught how to trap and catch falcons, and it wasn't. The information that we were given was not welcomed by the managers of the poachers, so we had to leave. But the poachers had come, so the camels had to be moved, and so these two pregnant camels who were very tired because they'd gotten stuck in the mud, okay, couldn't and didn't have the energy to swim across. Both almost died, and one young child, maybe 10 years old, 8 years old, was standing on the shore watching, with tears in his eyes, waiting so that his adopted friend, camel, could make it across. We sent a little boat out. The camel herders were trying to keep her head up. We sent a boat out to try and help give them some tow. Uh, we brought her to the shore, and she died on the shore in front of us. I filmed it. I should have maybe put my camera down. I didn't. But we were requested for a knife because the camel herder said, Tariq Saab, if I can have a knife, mine is not sharp enough from your boat, then we can slaughter her and sell the meat. But she died before because even my knife didn't arrive on time and was not strong enough for her or sharp enough for her hide. And her life left, and Ibrahim, no, Ismail, the herder, I know him, he was the first herder. Nurjan, he is the herder we met the first time when you were with me, and Mujahid and all of us were together. Uh, he put his hands down, he turned around without a word, and he walked across to Karangi and left his son-in-law, who was on the next video, to take care of things. But the camel was there for 3 days till the tides took it out. Life and death is part of existence and is part of our lives, but uh, where it meets with a herd animal and a human being and the very existence, that's a substantial amount of investment that disappeared out of Haji Ismail's hand.
The things that Tariq has seen, the dolphins and the mud skippers, and it just really elevates the soul.
Is Hiba going here? She's not here. So Hiba was with me, Taimur, Hiba, myself. We'd taken a short trip. And at the golf course, at the Karachi golf course, the dolphins. The Indian humpback dolphin and the common dolphin. And then, of course, there are the mud skippers.
These are the cutest things ever.
So when we go out, we dedicate our trips to particular life forms. So 3 or 4 life here. So many species and so many life forms seen only when we look. Every centimeter of the mud is alive, on the surface and below. Below the surface is a network of tunnels, homes, and highways, an ecosystem that has been able to cope to the onslaught of pollution and abuse. This is a bloodworm. We use it as bait, and the habitat needs it as a vital aerator of anaerobic soil.
Sometimes even shrimp jump into our boat. When tides recede, shrimps get washed into the mudbank channels. And when a boat enters these shallows, they panic and try to escape, exploding out of the water. These waters are prolific. The shrimps grow fast, 4 months to become large, and the catch is still substantial, even close to the city.
That's dinner
This is
at
because
Okra.
of mangroves, all in the shadow of Karachi and its uncontrolled development, excessive pollution, and unsustainable practices.
जब जंगल होते हैं उसमें छोटे झींगे होते हैं, छोटी मछली होती है, उसके अंदर चलती है। जब वो बंद कर देगा, पानी सूख जाएगा नहीं, तो वो जो मछली मर जाता है।
This Raji Ismail's son-in-law.
मछली झींगे जो है बेजार जो हो रही है जंगल के अंदर होते हैं। जंगल के हिसाब से ये जंगल काट रहे हैं तो वो जो नहीं पानी रुक जाता है, खींच हो जो नहीं खिचड़ी हो जाता है।
In spite of the destruction of these mangroves, some of the migrating birds have been returning, and somehow the ecosystems have been coping with the pollution. For me, the most spectacular is the flamingo. The resident and migratory population was large. They left Karachi's islands last year due to mangrove cutting and poaching. Some cormorants stayed and others returned by the thousands. The cormorants feed off the waters of these estuaries, but the flamingos feed on the shores of these very disturbed mangroves. But for how long can these natural habitats compensate? How long before we lose these visitors and residents of Karachi? The flamingos I photographed here in 2018 did not return in 2020. Captain Salim had to sell his own fishing trawler. He tells us why.
पहले तो काफ़ी मच्छियाँ थी हमारे पास, तो बहुत होती थी मच्छियाँ। चारे के पीछे मच्छियों की चारा है ही नहीं अपने पास, और मच्छियाँ भी बिल्कुल बहुत दूर दूर चली गई हैं। तो जंगलात में ये अंडे या बच्चे देते, ये फिर बाहर निकलते, तो सारा उसमें जाने में उसमें आ जाते, तो उसको बढ़ने
This fish is used for
जंगलात
chicken
तो
feed.
समझो खत्म होते ही जा रहे हैं, आस्ते आस्ते सारा समझो खत्म हो गई।
Men walk on mud. They hunt crabs, collect shells, housing life, and seek clams, razor clams. The sun sets on these once famous oyster beds, Karachi. So much that has suffered because of progress. The struggle to live is real, and commerce carries on, all in the shadow of development.
And there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't carry on and the flamingos shouldn't be there. I mean, people fly to Miami to look at them, and it's a huge city. It's massive, and it's more developed than Karachi. But they really look after their flamingos, right? People fly there.
Cutting was in the year 2020 to 21 and then 21 to 22 the highest amount of cutting. There were days where you could not speak because of the sound of chainsaws. 19 flocks of 5 to 6,000 migratory flamingos that would come here to nest. They moved to Sharjah and Abu Dhabi because the nature reserves were protected and they felt safe. These
It's
are
not just our millionaires who are leaving with their money,
the
it's the
birds,
birds as well.
the birds did leave. And they came back during COVID. The dolphins came back during COVID because there was a let off, slight let off, but it started again. And the volume of noise and cutting, the overt hostility now in the mangroves by the individuals who cut is high. The pressures are higher. The pressure to live and to pay back loans is higher. It's complicated, but we need to ensure that a certain limited amount of our islands are protected and nurtured into nature reserves. It is not just for the aesthetic value and beauty, it is for our health and for the health of our progeny and the future generations.
What about replanting, Tariq? Are they replanting as fast as it's coming down?
They're replanting, but they're replanting in the further delta, which has a lot less water, sweet water. So they are ignoring this area. I have been accused of why are you worried about only 7% of our delta? And the answer is very simple. We've had this conversation, Ruja. The answer is very simple because the largest and the most prolific old growth of mangroves is on the islands of Karachi. And why is that? Because we are throwing out so much effluent, untreated effluent, unfortunately. And the Avicenna marina species is the one that can handle the toxic waste that we are throwing out. So all the others have died out on our islands and being brought back on further islands. But the Avicenna marina has been able to flourish here because it's this incredibly magic tree that can handle all of this. This is not a botany talk. Happy to have a private conversation. But the plantation is happening, and it's exceptional work that's happening, and I stand witness to that as well as to the cutting. But if you don't look after what you have where you need it, we need the green oxygen producing forests. Yeah. The highest amount of oxygen that's produced by another plant is the phytoplankton, and we are ruining that by not treating the effluent and the waste that we throw out in the oceans. It is killing the phytoplankton that produces the high volume of oxygen. It's encouraging the growth of a morphed new form of phytoplankton that's reddish in color and takes away the oxygen and makes the ocean anaerobic. Everything moves away. We are killing our oceans. There are some UN studies that classify our waters as dead waters. By all means, by no means they are dead as yet, but they will be if we don't do something about it.
I don't know. I feel really kind of heartbroken at this point, but I still think that if there are more people like Tariq going out there, and maybe we can all get companies, corporates, etc., convince them that maybe these are projects that need to be funded, and do more studies on this and push government to act. You won't be eating poisoned food either. Think about that. I mean, all that garbage is going into the water, and your seafood is feeding off that. So you're ingesting that at the end of the day. As I said, those huge prawns are on your table at Okra. But one of the most beautiful things, we started with the sunrise, and one of the most beautiful things I've seen is this thing called bioluminescence. It is absolutely stunning. So then, Tariq, you can explain to everyone what it is and what it's made up of. And if any of you are scuba divers, this is the season to go out diving, and you dive down even 10, 20 feet, and you shake up the water, and it's like being in a billion stars. It's absolutely spectacular.
Phytoplankton. Zooplankton exists in our waters. The phytoplankton is the highest producer of oxygen. Karachi's breeze, that wonderful legacy that we feel, is now almost like a legend, like a story, because it doesn't exist anymore. That fresh breeze that we used to get in the evenings. I remember growing up in Guru Mandar, and through over the whole city, this evening breeze would come. We'd sit in the courtyards of my grandfather's Haveli, and there were no air conditioners. Everyone slept in one room because when the air conditioner came, only one air conditioner would run, and about 6 of us would sleep in that room when I was a very young child. But the rest of the day, we would sit in these wonderful courtyards in the evening and have our cups of tea. You know, even as a 5-year-old, I would sit there and I remember that cool caress on one's face of this. Where is it? We are poisoning our waters. The phytoplankton and the zooplankton is dying, and the amount of oxygen produced on the oceans is reducing. However, we still, and this is important for all of us to know, we live in one of the ecological zones of the world that is a marine hotspot for marine bioluminescence. And I'd like you to experience this. Thank you for shutting the lights. None of these images are edited or enhanced. Asya, that conversation, none of them are edited or enhanced. This is off the golf course, the DHA golf course, just beside Karachi. And it's happening now. I was there 2 weeks ago. This was spiritual.
As they say, it's a beautiful world.
I purposely have shown this particular footage because it is of phase 6 and 8, just off Dodaria. These are the waters of Mandal Island. It is a shame to lose this to those buildings that you see behind Mohatta. If you look on the side of Mohatta, you'll see those. 180 of those were slated for the island. It's axiomatic, it's simple, it's the only choice we have, that we need to ensure that a marine protected area is declared here, that a nature reserve is declared here. I'm an architect. I will stand witness that there should not be even a single building built on that island. There's a helicopter.
And what are you going to do about it?
I think we would we'll talk about that, but I think we have 15 minutes or so. Question and answers, please. Anyone if wants to ask anything?
I think you probably need this mic. So I'm going to ask whoever's in charge to take this mic.
Who have been trained by Tahir Qureshi Sahab, who is a legend, who is this incredible human being, this incredible forester, who have set up a department in the Sindh government that shines like a beacon. And I will also stand witness for them. Today's talk wasn't about the forestry. The plantation is being done. Okay. It's being done, and I mentioned it, it's being done in a huge manner on the Delta. The question about carbon credits is a completely different discussion and argument, and we should have it sometime, maybe in a closed forum. It's a questionable thing. I live a capitalist life. Perhaps I've not been brought up fully as one. You know, Jamil Saab is here. He'll vouch for my leanings on this. But we have to be careful in giving generalizations. So your point is accepted, well taken, and yes, maybe I should have emphasized the fact that the plantation is being done because the work is seminal. I've made a film for it, I've presented it at COP. It is really one of the wonderful stories of this country. The Time magazine covered my efforts in an 8-page spread in their oceans issue because of my work as well as the forest department's work in their listing of red and green zones for ecological efforts, specifically on the oceans and the marine environment. Pakistan was listed as a green. So no, I'm not having only bad news. In this thing, yes, maybe I should have emphasized it. I stand corrected. So thank you so much. Journalism needs to be done. I'm not an investigative journalist. I do perhaps understand and I'm witness. However, the what can be done and should be done. Okay. I would like to show this. Nature reserves need to be made. You leave Bundle Island alone. In 5 years, the 10% that is wooded will become 35, and in 10 years, at least 66%. This is a study that I have personally undertaken at my own cost vis-a-vis intertidal zones. Intertidal zones is the level at which the water will go up and down on this, where the mangroves can grow and where the different species can grow. I'm in the process of actually writing a book, trying to collaborate with WWF. I work with IUCN, with Tahir Qureshi Sahab when he was the IUCN and alive. I had the privilege of having one of his last conversations and interviews with me. Which was he's an incredible human being that we have not lost him because his trainees are in the mangrove department and they're amazing people. A sunken boat where they were salvaging the boat, and so I went and interviewed them. I knew who they were. I knew what the work they did. They were woodcutters along with other work. I think you were with me, Shahab, that day. And the forest department called me up and said, hello, you know. I said, yeah, what happened? Nah? They said, do you know who sank that boat? So they said, we did. I said, how do you know? He said, was there a concrete block in there? I said, yes, there was. He said, we had a jirga where we caught the woodcutters and gave them a warning. And they were found guilty by the jirga in the village, in Chashmanwood, where they were fined and stopped from the wood cutting. The elders, after the entire jirga, sat together and told the forest department, forgive them, they will not do it again. Don't fine them, they're poor people. The cost of the wood that they remove does not cover the fuel that is used to take it out. Please do the math. Please do the thinking as to why and who and what. So the jirga let them off, and the forest department, and to answer your thing, the forest department told them, we catch you once again, we will sink your boat. And there was a young man called Jamali, who they call our cheetah. Okay. Young, slight man. He said, हाँ साहब, मेरा कंक्रीट का ब्लॉक था, हमने वार्निंग दी थी, हमने उनकी बोट डुबा दी, उनका इंजन हमारे पास पड़ा है, ठीक है? So they are doing things about it. But what is done in isolation in this country? When the cost of the product that you remove from this forest does not even cover the fuel that it takes, or the dihadi, or the daily wages of the people that go out. There are things that my knowledge is hearsay. My knowledge is my assumptions. I'm not an investigative journalist. But if there are investigative journalists, there are stories here that you need to know. Not enough. Not enough, sir.
Protect their natural habitat. So if you had people going out, paying to go out, so you cover the cost of the fuel, you cover everything. You go out to see the birds, you go out to see the mangroves. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the mangrove flowers. They're absolutely beautiful. So I mean, it's like a nature day out, and you've got what 25 million people in the city. At least 100,000 of them can afford to do this.
It is, the fragrance is of the finest and the gentlest of French perfumes. And you feel it. You don't smell it, you feel it. It has a body, it has a presence that announces itself a kilometer away before you reach the roots. That was happening just 4 weeks ago. Of the need for nature reserves. What happens with nature reserves? There is an entire way forward that's chalked that has been shared with officials at the Sindh government, with officials in the forestry department, a year and a half, 2 years ago. The proposals are there, the way forward as to how to do this, the public-private, the public-private partnerships that need to be put in place are identified. It's easy. We've gone to the extent of creating designs as an architect of floating habitations and learning centers that can be placed within the mangroves with the lowest of carbon footprint, that can be sailed out in multiple places, where you can have educational systems, you can have processes uh, that are removable, that will be able to sustain them. These are also prototypes for sea-going communities and shoreline communities that will have to cope with sea level rise and with the inundation, where the tides will start encroaching in further and further. The regeneration, these are not planted seedlings, these are natural regenerations. And if you leave the islands alone, where the camels don't come for 5 years to eat the seedlings or trample the seeds, this island will regenerate. The camels can be fed with other species. What will we lose if we don't do that? This 1 minute of video is what we will lose. A substantial part of this is already gone. So, you've witnessed that, you've seen some of that. This is one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, where I discovered what it was. And this whole life form and the ecosystems that are so alien to ours, that live in the stage between land and sea, that need both to survive. Not breathe from their roots, expel salt from their roots. And we will all leave.
Thank you, Tariq, and may the force be with you.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Much, much gratitude for the work that you do with such passion. And I, oh, the mic open. Oh, sorry. Thanks very much. And also, of course, Aisha, for supporting Tariq throughout, as well as the people. I'm sure that a lot of us will take something with us tonight. Um, what stayed with me was the survivor to support us. They make all of this happen, frankly. And of course, we have a very dedicated board of trustees. To invite the director, Mrs. Askari, to give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Is the mic on? It is on. How can we possibly thank you, Tariq? How can we possibly thank you? You are poet, author, lover, photographer, eco-warrior, patient man, a renaissance man. How can we possibly thank you? Thank you for creating awareness. Thank you for creating visuals that are arresting and can provide inspiration for those who wish to experience it. Thank you very, very much indeed. And please, please, Tariq, tell us what we should do. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some rather wonderful refreshments.
BAMM.